and welcome to Meet the Author, a program that is brought to you by Quincy Access Television and the Thomas Crane Public Library. During the show, we will highlight authors and their work. Copies of their books are available for checkout at the Thomas Crane Public Library. Also, the library hosts book clubs for all ages, and you can find out more information about them if you visit the library's website, thomascranelibrary.org.
I'm Mark Crosby. Thank you for joining us. I'm joined in studio today by a few people here, and we'll start with our producer, James Egan, and next to him is author Dan Perdios, and next to us on the floor is Franklin. And there's a lot to talk about today, gentlemen. First of all, welcome to Quincy Access Television. Thanks for coming in. There's a movie we're going to be talking about. There's a book we're going to be talking about. So I'm so glad that you joined me here at the Quincy Access Television studios to kind of tell me a little bit about yourself, about the book, about the movie. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So before we get into the movie, before we get into the book, just if you could tell our viewers a little bit about yourselves. So James, we'll start with you, a producer, a movie producer.
You know,
among other things.
Among other things, right. But I think a lot of people at home will always say, what's a producer do? What's a producer do?
And I was thinking about that as I was sitting down, because this will be an education for folks as well.
You know, I guess when you work in independent film, a producer does everything. You even make breakfast. When I was on a film in Africa, I was cooking the crew on a little tiny hot plate. Out in the middle of the outback of Africa. In this particular project, you're there from the very beginning, from the idea to the conception to the development of it. You work with the writer. You find the financing if there's no financing, if it's not a studio picture, and you really work to support the director and the director's vision to make sure that, and particularly me, because I work with a lot of first-time directors, they really need that encouragement to know that their vision is going to come true and help support that. And then in the very end, as in this case, and because of the book, you find the distribution deal, which, you can be making the greatest movie in the world, but if nobody sees it, then what's the point of making it? And nowadays, the distribution deal is really one of the hardest parts of it, and getting a film made and then getting it out there. So like I said, producers do everything, whatever it takes, and I love it. I love the whole process. So,
and talk to us about higher learning as far as colleges, because you are retired now from teaching out in California, and I'm sure a lot of talented students have gone through your classes. So to your point about finding distribution is key, because there's probably a lot of great talent out there.
Well, I taught at USC, which is very it's a film school that is really industry oriented. That's one of the big criticisms of USC, is that it's very Hollywood. And one of the reasons that they hired me as a professor, I was a screenwriting professor, but I was most interested in, or being hired to help the students find a different perspective that didn't include, special effects, but really a story. Because I really think that key to every important film is story, and caring about the characters, and really wanting to take that journey with the characters. And so they brought me on because one of my films had won the Spirit Award, which is the Independent Spirit Award. It's like the Oscar, but for independent films. And so I work closely with students, teaching them, most of all, to focus on the emotional journey of the character, and making sure that the audience really cares about this character. And then from there, you can have special effects. But, like one of my students was Ryan Coogler. He did a film called Black Panther. And I really believe that Ryan was in my class. He was writing a cowboy movie, if you can believe all that. He went from cowboy movie to that. But again, I think in Black Panther, you care about the characters, and you really emotionally involved with them, even though there's like a zillion dollars of special effects. And because of that, I think you're going to be, it's going to be easier for you to find distribution, because any distributor is going to look at a film and say, wow, I'm moved by that. I'll take a risk. And that certainly happened with this film, Wild About Harry.
Right, and we will talk certainly about Wild About Harry in just a moment. Dan, I want to turn to you and talk about, you had a role in that movie, and we will talk about that.
Yeah.
But next to me is a book that you have written. You are an author.
Right.
Talk about your authorship.
I was a journalist in Northern California. In Sonoma County, I wrote for a small paper there. And it was about politics, it was about health issues, and it was about my dogs, because they've been they've been my core support, really, since the 80s. Though people really liked everything that I wrote, or disliked what I wrote, depending.
They were reading it.
They were reading it, exactly, and commenting on it. But what really resonated with lots of people were my articles about my dogs. And it just seemed to happen. The first one was Nicholas, and then Willie came along, and it just continued. And I started thinking, well, you know, maybe I should write something about my dogs. Maybe I should focus on that. And so that's how the dog books began. And this is the first one. This is a scene that I had worked on before. And it had been a long part, and then it was cut down. And now I've expanded it for this one because it stands alone. It's a great read, you know?
And I love how the book and the movie connect. And we will talk about that. But I think for folks, Wild About Harry is again the movie, and we will show a trailer of that, and then we will come back into the studio to talk more about both the book and the movie.
Here we are. This is our new home.
Daisy, slow down! Maddie, it's the penultimate view. You gotta come see it. You think there'll be boys there? I hope so.
Get a move on.
Bye, Dad.
First day, good no kiss.
I like your bell bottoms. I like your bell bottoms.
Katrina Brown.
Harry Goodhart. Pleasure to meet you.
Another eligible bachelor, perhaps?
Morning. Toodaloo.
Oh, Toodaloo, you're so gorgeous. Who's this Gibbs?
Mr. Gibbs is my new business partner.
So you're the other half.
Some say I'm the better half.
Well, I hope to see more of both halves, and you're primitive.
Mr. Gibbs is going to be living with us in the back until he can find his own place.
Mr. Gibbs! Your bathroom looks just like my dad's.
You haven't told them yet.
Anyone finds out I lose the girls, I'm a man in love.
Customers, Harry.
In-laws.
I know about your father.
Why didn't you tell me?
It's none of my business.
Is telling inflammatory and damaging lies.
We've destroyed our entire family, Madeline. Do you realize that?
It's all over school.
Then why did you invite him to live with us?
They're my children, Mark.
Law does not allow homosexuals to raise children.
How would you like it if your children were taken away from you? I won't stand for it! I'm still your father.
Your family is your family.
That was the trailer to Wild About Harry, a film that we will be talking about along with the book that chronicles to a part the movie, the events that took place almost on a day-to-day, focus. I know, Dan, you were an assistant to the prop manager?
Yeah, that's officially what I was. I was learning. But since I knew the area, and I got Steve's truck, he lent it for me.
Oh, it was Steve. Of course, Steve Perdios,
Yeah,
for those
right.
of you who know Quincy, Steve Perdios is your brother.
Right. And he let me borrow his truck during the whole filming. And they didn't have to monitor my actions or my behavior. If they wanted, they said, go to Harwich and get an instrument. I know how to get there.
Right.
Since I've been there, I spent a lot of time during the summer on the Cape. Of course, everyone knows how to get to Provincetown and Hyannis, but I knew all the side roads and how to get, go get 2,200 tennis balls, go to the store and get some bread or mayonnaise for the kitchen scene. So it really worked.
Did he do a good job?
When in independent film,
He didn't answer it.
It was a delay.
Right.
the prop master never complained about him. So I was.
You did okay.
That was a great thing.
He definitely, it was a big risk because, I recommended him to be a prop or on the prop department. And the very fact that he had a truck that we didn't really have to rent, and we had, and independent film money is a big issue, and we had a place to stay, so we didn't have to house him or pay for transportation. This was a deal, And if he made a couple of mistakes, okay, but, it was a good deal from the producer's point of view. And he found some amazing props, because as you saw in the movie, this is a period piece, and you got to find period props, you got to find period bread, I don't know how he even found that 70s bread. I don't know what story went for that, but there's some quirky places on the Cape that only he would know about, because I had really not spent that kind of time there. So I guess the answer is yes, he did a great job.
Well, let's talk about, because you just touched upon, it's a period piece set in the early 70s, and the subject matter. And talk about, I guess we can look at how acceptance has changed over the years. And back in the early 70s, it was a different time.
Well, this is a true story. This is, inspired by a true story. This is our director, Gwen, growing up in Dennis, going to Dennis High with her sister, Daphne, and her father was well known in Dennis for making American primitive furniture. They had a really great, they had a big reputation for American primitive furniture. So he was a known artist. They were friends with Edward Gorey. I don't know if you see in the movie, there's a big picture, a painting by Edward Gorey. So this was a family that was part of the artistic scene in Dennis, or in that part of the Cape. But so they were very visible, and they had to be very careful because his father was very afraid that the children, because he was gay and with his partner, Mr. Phipps, they're going to have the kids getting away. And their grandparents were very well established. In the movie, they're professors and academics, but in reality, they were diplomats in Washington. So they had a lot of power and could easily have taken the children away from Mr. Phipps and her father. So one of the surprising moments for both of us, when we gave the Hyannis Film Festival the film to show to raise money, and Gwen, the director, invited all her high school friends, and then we had the Q&A, and one of her friends stood up and said, now we understand why you never invited us to your house. This is like how many years later, like what, 20, 30 years later, they're saying, oh my God, that's why we never got to go to your house. So even now, it's still a revelatory film for Gwen's friends,
Well, and I said acceptance, but it's become, we now embrace diversity, and which we all should. I mean, that's the way to live. That's the way I feel. And Dan, this leads me to activism. That's a big part of your life.
Yeah. Well, why don't I just go right to the beginning? When I left Quincy and went to San Francisco, it was 1977. Harvey Milk was running again for city council supervisor. They don't have a city council. They have county supervisors there. So Harvey Milk was running again, and there I was, and there he was, and he came into the restaurant I worked at, and he said, why don't you come down and hand out literature? Why don't you come down and hold a sign? And it was like, that was the start of my activism, mostly all in California, you know. And of course, there were other things going on. I got involved with somebody, had a relationship, you know. We were living, we were having fun, we were young, you know, and
We're not still young?
well, I don't recognize myself anymore, but you know, that's a part. I'm here. I didn't think I would live past 40, and I'm here. So that's the good thing. So it's when the AIDS epidemic hit, I just moved right into that action. It was simple. It was an easy transition after working with, you know, Harvey Milk, and I interned in City Hall right after he was shot, and I got to meet lots of people. Cleve Jones, who did the AIDS quilt, you know, was a friend. So I moved right into the ACT UP kind of activism. But at the same time, I also was on the AIDS Commission in Sonoma County, and we did the Candlelight March, Memorial, you know, we were doing everything. It was a wild time in a different respect.
Now, I'll need to ask how you two came to work together, how you met.
Well, I was in Palm Springs because of the Palm Springs International Film Festival. I've had several films there, and I was at a coffee shop called Coffee. It's where, you know, everybody hangs out.
KOFFI.
Oh, okay. There had to be a slight difference.
Yeah, people, you know, a lot of really interesting Hollywood types would go there as well, you know, the older ones. And so this golden retriever kept on nudging me and bugging me and wanted my, you know, tofu sandwich. And finally he shows up and says, is this your dog? And are you bothering me? And I said, no. And then we sat down, and of course we were immediately talking about politics, because all my films are about political activism and, you know, social issues, AIDS, the defector. God, it goes on and on and on, the amount of issues that I've dealt with in the last 10 films. But so we had an immediate connection. Plus he had a house in Palm Springs.
Can't go wrong there.
Can't go wrong there, right.
So which dog introduced the two of you?
Willie.
Willie. Okay.
Willie
He's
introduced
the central character.
He is
in
the
book.
central character of the book.
The joke is I had to retrieve my retriever, you know, because he was being embarrassing me. He was supposed to be well trained, and here he is pawing. I mean, really, like pawing. You know, I really want something.
So I guess it was more of like, you know, destiny thanks to a golden retriever. So we've been, you know, golden retriever dads, you know, since Willie. And I didn't really, as you know from the book, I wasn't a dog person. I mean, I appreciated dogs. I had a dog growing up, but in my business where I'm traveling, you know, I'm out of the country for 3 months, you know, living in Africa, you can't take your dog with you. So, and living in LA, it's not really conducive to having a dog. And so I got reintroduced to the dog world, and believe me, it's really, dog owners and dog world is a whole new set of stories to tell. And so, you know, Willie on the set was a new thing, because I'd never had a dog on the set of my film, any project. First of all, I wouldn't allow it, for one thing. So here I am living with a dog, you know, the dog's on the set, and then the dog becomes like the most popular person on the set with all the actors, and you know from the book how that went. So
right. I think there was the woman that was working in the food service that originally didn't seem like she'd take to Willie, but that changed.
And I was just sitting back thinking, how long is this going to last?
Right.
You know, when is he going to win out? And it happened.
Yeah,
she held
absolutely.
off a little bit, but
couldn't resist.
No.
That's a great scene in the book, because she was a tough cookie. You know, she would know, because everybody wanted that clam chowder. I mean, that clam chowder was nectar of the gods. I mean,
I would have wanted it too.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
And it's
right.
cold, and it's April, and so your clam chowder every day was an essential part of crew life. And Willie he was Mr. Clam Chowder. He was just waiting and waiting and waiting, and finally, you know, one day,
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk about how did it become a project? How did it become a film?
Well, I had just come back from Africa. I had made a film about with a company called Participant, which did The Inconvenient Truth, and I was a producer for them. And they had hired me because this woman director had brought back footage of the AIDS crisis in Africa, and millions of children, were being orphaned because their parents were dying from AIDS. And so we wanted to make a film that showed the crisis in Africa with kids and how we had to respond, like a message worldwide, when we even showed at the World Bank. So I basically came back from Africa after making this film, and it was pretty intense, because thousands of people were dying, and it was really a very emotional film. And I was like, what am I going to do next? And then I work in diversity in film. As a professor, I was teaching in a project for the Independent Film Organization, which was about bringing more diverse people into the industry, of all different backgrounds, women, men, everybody. So Pamela Tom, who was head of that, said, I have a script you have to read. So I read the script by Gwen Wynn about her story growing up with gay dads. And I was just like so moved. I had to do this project. And Dan and I, of course, had just met. All of a sudden, I'm Gwen saying, give me your credit card. That's the way it works in independent film. The producer, everything happens on the producers. Even though I tell my students, don't ever give the director your credit card. I gave her my credit card, and we got tickets, and I was moving to Cape Cod. And that's when I said to Dan, I said, I'm leaving, I'm sorry, and we just met. I really would love to get to know you better. And then you said,
well, let's backtrack a little bit. He wouldn't tell me what the film was about for a long time, and he kept saying, no, I can't tell anybody until we really are on the set or have the plane tickets.
And that's usually how it goes. You have to keep quiet.
Keep it quiet.
And I was really curious, but I thought, okay, I respect what you're doing and that you need to keep quiet. But then once he told me that it was a movie on Cape Cod about gay parents, well, I really wanted to at least be there. And at first I said, why can't I? Well, maybe I'll come back for a week. I'll see my family, I'll hang out with you a little bit. And he said, well, I'm not going to have any time. I'm going to be busy from the moment I get there. And then I thought, well, get me a job. Find something for me to do on the set so that we're together and we have a cause that we're together with.
And of course, that after you've been dating somebody for a couple of weeks and they ask you for a job,
right.
What's, hello?
It's like the director asking for your credit card, right?
Exactly. The director takes your credit card and your new possible boyfriend wants a job. Okay, well, this is going to be a fun project. So it was a big risk because we'd never lived together, and we're going to stay in the Howe house, as you know from the book, one of the oldest houses in the Cape. So it was like, not exactly a spacious place. It's it's like you had to duck down when you're walking in the house because it's one of those really old houses.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it was a Howe house on Howe Pond on Howe Road. The Howes. So we took the leap. We went and as it turns out, having him on the set was critical because this is a first-time director. We have big-name actors. You have Adam Pascal, who's now who was the star of Rent. So there was a huge interest in him. Tate Donovan, who plays his dad, he's really a known actor. Then you have
he was on Ally McBeal.
Right. I recognized him.
Yeah, and then Josh Peck. We had to get special security. Josh Peck was like the #1 show on Nickelodeon. Drake and Josh.
Right.
Every kid in America. He had I think he had like, doesn't he have 14 million followers?
Something like that.
Something
Really
crazy.
large.
So we had to get special security because teenage 12 to, 15 type young girls would come to the set and want to see Josh. In fact, one of our investors, the reason he put money in is so his daughters could meet Josh Peck. So
Interesting.
this director had a handful of big name, actors for her first film.
Well, Stacey Dash.
Stacey
She's in
Dash.
Clueless.
you know.
Right again. I remember that. I remember seeing her on
Yeah.
Clueless.
So here's this first-time woman director dealing with these big names, and we did not expect that the golden retriever would be so critical to,
Yeah.
well, because you were on the set,
Yeah. Any tension.
I have to say that I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
And first-time director, good job.
Yeah.
Good job on Gwen's part.
The film was made in 2009, but nobody would distribute it then. It was not a film that, I don't even think Ellen had come out yet. It was really, there was no films being distributed on a national level like that,
A positive message about having kids.
gay
It really
family.
was unique.
The Kids Are All Right. Look how long it took for the Kids Are All Right to come out. I mean, it's only 8 years ago. So we had no option. And then during COVID, Dan decided 2019, right?
Something like that.
2000
Whenever COVID hit, the early time.
So it was shelved until
Shelved. Completely
2019.
shelved. Nobody had seen the film. It was so
Yeah.
crazy. So he's writing this book, and I said, well, you're going to write a book about making that film. You better see that film.
Right.
So here we are in COVID and lockdown, and we call up Gwen. We say, Gwen, send us a copy of that film. And what for? Because we want to see it again. So here we are in COVID, lockdown in Palm Springs, and we're watching the film, and we look at each other and we go,
We love this film. We've always loved this film.
It had a great feel. It looked beautiful. It
Beautifully
moved
shot.
well.
Yeah.
The actors were top notch.
incredible acting and a good emotional and a teenage and it's all from teenage girls. How many films do you see that are so powerfully driven about gay life from the children of, We had this screening and in San Francisco, and it was packed. And after it was all over, it was so emotional. All these kids were like, you told our story. We've never seen our story. This is what it's like, It was like, oh, it has an authenticity that we had no way of measuring, without that kind of an audience. And then I got a bug, and I said, okay, that's it. I'm going to get this film distributed.
Best of luck on the film.
Thank you.
Best of luck on the book. Thank you so much, and congratulations as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for
It's great to be here at
inviting us.
Quincy.
Yeah.